to the first video of Unit 3! Woo! Unit 3! And our first joke to start off is pretty darn hilarious. So we have, why did Mrs. Tomato turn red? Right? Because she saw, just wait for it, ready? Mr. Green Pea! Because she saw Mr. Green Pea, like, not actually a green pea, but like, you know, the toilet. Alright. You bet you thought it was a salad dressing, huh? Alright, properties of equations. Properties of equations is about following the rules of algebra. Alright, so our first column here, we're going to do inverse properties. So these are all called inverse property of, and then whatever this first line is. So inverse property of addition. Oops. Inverse property of addition, that means that subtraction undoes addition. Alright, then we have the inverse property of subtraction. And we know that addition undoes subtraction. Then we have the inverse property of multiplication. And we know that division undoes multiplication. We have the inverse property of division. And we know multiplication undoes division. We're going to be using these on the back side. So if you're a little confused about when we would use those, we will talk about it. Alright, over on this right hand side we have the equality properties. So the equality property of addition. If you add the same amount to both sides of an equation, it remains equal. So when you add something to one side, you want to remain it to be equal. So if I have 3 equals 3, if I add 2 to this side, in order to keep it the same, I have to add 2 to this side. Alright? Then we have the equality property of subtraction. If you subtract the same amount to both sides of an equation, it remains equal. Alright, multiplication. If you multiply, I'm just going to do MULT, the same amount to both sides of an equation, it remains equal. And then we have division. If you divide the same amount to both sides, oops, an equation, it remains equal. So pretty much whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other side to make sure that's still equal. Okay? Alright, so what you need to use properties every step of the way. Okay, flip over to the back once you have this done every step. You need to use properties every step of the way. Every step in an equation. Sorry, that sounded goofy. Okay, so let's go to the back side. This we're actually going to cross out. That was a misprint. Sorry. This should be one-step equations. It is about using properties to solve equations in one step. And on here, right now, we are kind of using more than one step. Technically, these are one-step equations, but because of our properties, we're going to break them down into some more. So let's take a look at this table here. All the math is done for us, but we're going to go through it together. So we have x plus 5 equals 21. That's the given. It was given to us. That's the way it was. We want to get x by itself. So we have to get rid of this adding 5. To get rid of adding, we subtract. That's the inverse property of addition. To get rid of adding, we had to subtract. But if we subtract on one side of the equation, we have to subtract on the other side. That's the equality property of addition. Oh, of subtraction, because you're subtracting, sorry. So subtraction. Okay, then we get 5 minus 5 is 0, and 21 minus 5 is 16. That was computation or compute. Alright, going from x plus 0 to x, that's using the identity property of addition. Okay, let's go down to this bottom table here where it says x minus 17. This is what's given to us. X minus 17 equals negative 14. That's the given. We want to get this x by itself. So we have to get rid of a subtracting 17. So to undo subtracting 17, you have to add 17. That's the inverse property of subtracting. We added 17 on the left side, so on the right side you have to add 17. That's the equality property of adding. Or of addition. If you add something to the left side, you have to add it to the right side. That's the equality property. Then we compute. So minus 17 plus 17, that turns out to be 0. Negative 14 plus 17 ends up being 3. To go from x plus 0 to x, that's the identity property of addition. Okay, moving up to this upper right hand side here, we have 9 times x equal to 117. We want this x right here to be by itself. So we have to get rid of that 9 times x. So to get rid of the 9 times x, we need to divide by 9. So to get rid of multiplying, you divide. So that's the inverse property of multiplying. We divide by 9 on one side, which means we have to divide by 9 on the other. That's the equality property of division. Alright, now we compute. So we have to do 117 divided by 9. 9 goes into 11 once, minus 9, you get 2, bring down 7. 9 goes into 27 3 times, so you get 13. Alright, so we get at 1 times x. We got this 1 here now because 9 divided by 9 is 1. So it's not x plus 0 anymore because this x plus 0 came from 5 minus 5 was 0. Over here we have 9 divided by 9, which is 1. 1 times x is x. We're not going to do anything over here. We're going to keep that 13. But we're going from 1x to x from the identity property of multiplication. Alright, let's go to our last example. On the left side here, we are going to have x divided by 7 equals 11. That's what's given to us. In order to get rid of dividing, we have to multiply by 7. So to get rid of dividing, so the inverse of dividing, inverse property of division, we have to multiply. If we multiply on one side, we have to multiply on the other side. That is the equality property of multiplication. So this divide by 7 times 7 turns out to be a 1 times x equals 7 times 11 is 77. That's computing. That means that we're doing some math. It means that we're adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing. Okay, 1 times x is x. There's nothing left to do on this side, so we get 77, and that was the identity property of multiplication. Okay, so to go from 1 times x to x, that's the identity property of multiplication. So what's important to understand, you must correctly name your properties. Alright? Then you need to take the quiz.